And I gotta say, I never know what's gonna come out of your mouth sometimes. When you said it's something that's near and dear to my heart, I did not expect the landscape artist to be what you were gonna say.
Well, that is near and dear to your heart, but really what I wanted to get to was the defensive line depth. Pete, this is something you've been talking about even since before you went to the Shadow Realm here. You've been talking about the need to develop defensive line depth, concerns there, and just long season, hopefully, if Miami does what they need to do, having to need different guys step up. Lance, in your breakdown, I noticed you paid particular focus to some of the backup defensive linemen or some of the guys that started in this game due to injury. So what do you see from the young defensive linemen as you break down that Stanford tape?
Yeah, the future's bright. The future is bright for Miami. I think you brought in Mario to stack talent and grow. He's basically in the talent acquisition business. He's maybe not a Jeff Brom when it comes to the X and O's, but where he wins is off the field. And you're seeing that. You're seeing Armando Blunt. He was impressive in this game. His power, his motor, his IQ, the way that he kind of really just did his job over and over in this game and was at home on some of those like attempted trick plays, things like that. And that was something that really impressed me. I think he has grown throughout the season. He's improved from day one till now, in my view. Super excited about Blunt. I think next year you could even see the light come on to where he becomes, maybe a star. Scroggins, a guy that, I outlined snap counts on the board maybe a month ago, and he's one that really kind of surprised you. You wouldn't have thought, oh, yeah, he's getting, more snaps than you'd think. And you're really starting to see why. Again, another player that's maybe a little bit denser than some of the light edges that we've had in the Lightfoot and some of those areas. Really impressed with his play. He continues to get pressure at a rate that's, well above average. And then another player that I think next year you could really see take a step forward, see a big role. Donta Simpson, big fan of what I saw in this particular game from him. It really looked like it started to slow down. So, you're 18, 19 years old, and in high school, you were the best, right? You were bigger, stronger, faster than everyone. You get to college, and now you're actually smaller, slower, younger, and it really tilts on his head. And a lot of these freshmen, especially at the defensive tackle position, I call it an old man position, they really they're just like wild, like ball of knives trying to go forward all the time. And maybe they forget their plan. They forget some of that pass rush plan or some of that hand usage plan that is being driven into them by our coaches. You really saw Simpson in this game use his hands, use some of those swim moves, over moves, and the quickness to get into the gaps against Stanford. That really stood out to me. I really liked what I saw from him. Frankly, and it did, not to turn it into a negative or anything, but I feel like he could be coming on to, maybe a couple of the guys that have been getting snaps ahead of him and might start.
That's what I said last week. I said that last week. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I love it when you guys kind of interact. So I'm not just like giving a soliloquy.
No, I'm sometimes I just sit back and it's poetic. So I just gotta take it in,
That's the first time anyone's ever said that to me, Pete. I appreciate that.
The analytical poet. That's your new.
There's a clickbait title.
Love it. So those are kind of the guys I saw. And, Lightfoot, I thought he did well stepping into a full-time role. There were a couple of times I would have liked to have seen him be even more physical. I think I even called it out a couple of times. Next year, when he's got 10 more pounds, he probably makes this play, he probably squeezes this. A lot of this defense, especially in Roscoe, which is just rush outside, contain on edge. So people call it Roscoe for short, right? And what that means is you're going to take a couple steps upfield, but you're going to contain so you don't get behind the quarterback or behind the running back and give up some of those gashes, right? And then you want to really squeeze that tackle with your hands and your power and length, which compresses that hole, right? That C-gap hole, that outside the tackle hole. We saw a couple of times he was right there and just didn't squeeze enough. I thought he was a little tentative, and if he had squeezed a little harder, there wouldn't have been a hole for the running back to push through. Happened a couple times in this game. First part is be where you're supposed to be, right? And he did that. Now I just want to see a little bit more physicality and power to squeeze those holes. I think next year when he's got maybe 10 pounds on him, you'll see that a little bit more. So Lightfoot's developing, played well, want Messidor back. Messidor's been playing at an All-American level. You want him back for this game. But those are kind of the things I saw on the D line with our young players. The future's bright.
So we'll keep this conversation going, but Lance, I know you got to run. Appreciate you as always. Thank you, Kanata Financial. Happy Halloween to the Rothfuss clan, and we will see you next week, hopefully for a victory breakdown.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.
Thank you, Lance.
All right, Pete. So I want to continue on this because I know this is big to you. What's up?
No, I was just gonna say we're talking the big boys, so I gotta talk about LaMelo's real quick. This is what they're feasting on. The recruits, not only the recruits, but the guys on campus, man. LaMelo's Meat Market. Check out LaMelos.com. Fresh Wagyu beef delivered to your door. Use promo code CIS10 for 10% off your order. If you're local here in Miami, got the store at 9810 South Dixie Highway. You got all the Wagyu. You got the prime cuts of meat as well. The skirt steak to me is unbelievable for tailgating. I know a lot of you guys are going to be watching from home, so go to LaMelo's today or tomorrow, man, and they'll be open. They'll be open tomorrow morning, so you can check them out before the game. LaMelos.com. Australian
Wagyu. Love that. That's a Ross line right there, Pete. So staying with the big boys here as we continue this discussion. Watching SMU. I do think they have some offensive line problems. Not the same thing about Louisville, and they were able to mitigate those. I know one thing that Jennings likes to do, or like to do with Jennings, is sort of roll them out, design quarterback movement where it's not a scramble. It's, hey, move the pocket, get him out of there to maybe protect against some weaknesses on your offensive line. You limit the field a little bit by doing that, but he has a good arm. He can make some throws and challenge different parts of the field from there. Marquise Lightfoot, who he can close that distance and run you down when you try to do that quarterback movement. I think he could factor in there. Who are some names just from watching what happened in Stanford, talking to your people, that you are keeping an eye on as sort of a young defensive lineman?
For this next game, I mean, Scroggins.
Or just in general, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Scroggins is the guy. I mean, we've been saying this, you got to pay close attention to what some of the coordinators say in these press conferences. And Herbert Scroggins was a guy maybe a week before the season. Corey Heatherman's like, this guy's going to play more than people realize. He has the body type. He has the mental capacity, right? You saw the motor that he plays with. I mean, he's the guy right now that to say that they're most excited about someone when you have a room full of very talented players is maybe hyperbolic, but they think this guy can be an absolute star for them. I mean, we talked about last year how they didn't really go into the portal for defensive linemen. I expect them to do that this year more so because for defensive ends, I should say, just because you're losing Bain and Mesidor. But Scroggins is a guy that I think they're looking at and saying, hey, that's a starter next year. I don't think there's any doubt about that in their minds right now.
Yeah, you still got Hayden Lowe. You still got him on the blunt life. I mean, it's going to be a good group, I think, overall. And they're going to work the portal there. The thing with Scroggins that caught my attention is just the ability to still perform with the extra weight, because he didn't look like the biggest guy in the world. Like Hayden Lowe is huge always. I think with Scroggins, you said great pass rusher, great kid, great worker, not overly huge and functionally athletic, but not like a freak by any means. But the fact he's put on the weight and still is able to get to the quarterback, it's just his intangibles, I think, are really carrying him, and and just his natural ability to rush the passer. Sharks outfit saying Bain said himself, Scroggins is his guy, and he's next up. Dante Simpson too, Pete. He's someone who has been dealing with some injuries, trying to get stronger. I think the big thing with him, but we identified him early on back in spring, I believe. We were the first people to really push the Dante Simpson agenda, and he's had injuries since then. He's gotten stronger, but you still want to see him get stronger. Cristobal mentioned his core strength needing to get better and getting better, but his quickness as a bigger guy is pretty easy to see.
Yeah, I think the strength will determine, how strong he gets over the next, couple of years will determine what his ceiling is ultimately, because there's obviously levels when it comes to this, but he's shown now last week, I think, starting to emerge that he can be a rotational piece here for this team. And it's funny because when Lance said it, I jumped at it right away, because I mentioned last week, I think it was with Amon, maybe earlier this week or maybe last week, I forget. But I said, we talk a lot about receiver because that's when you see guys getting the ball. But there's other positions here where I think certain guys can push. And I said, does Dante Simpson push a Justin Scott? Does he take, because people are saying, people like to say, well, Keelan Marion shouldn't be getting many reps, shouldn't be getting as many snaps. I think that there's other guys across the roster you could say, hey, they're getting pushed, and this is a positive, right? I don't want to look at this as like guys aren't performing to their level. I want to say, hey, you have a 5-star who's now being pushed by a guy who was a 3-star prospect. That was a great evaluation by Miami, and you want to see you need more from Scott.
Yeah.
I'm not giving up on him by any stretch, right? Sometimes these defensive linemen take multiple years to really hit it.
Yeah, not linear. There's ups and downs sometimes.
Yeah, so that position in particular. So I think it's a really good thing, though, for the health of the roster when you start to see that sort of competition arise.
No question about it. And with, Scott, I think with Ahmad Moten, who's having a really good year and has been turned into a really good player, is that, Ahmad Moten, it wasn't a straight line, right? It was ups and downs. It was competition. Really, when we started bringing in guys to play over him is when he started getting rolling and earning his spot, right? So I think that's only going to help Justin Scott. It's going to help that room. It's I like what we're seeing with the defensive line. Now, Bain is such an impactful guy. As a freshman, you kind of knew he was special, so like extra special. So to replace him, I don't know if that would have to be the portal or someone really making a big leap as far as like one player that is that dominant. We'll see. I mean, who knows? But I do think collectively, and that's a collective position too, defensive line. You need guys there. You're seeing a lot of progress, not just for this year, but for the future. And then it gets to a retention game and finding out who's going to be the guys you got to pay and keep around, because, it's this is a position that gets rated by every single school, and every single school is getting rated. So really this time I think is helpful to find out who is who and who's going to really, really be that building block. Herbert Scroggins, Armando Blunt, no Marquise Lightfoot guys that are really showing that they can go, and then you're seeing people step up. But yeah, I think, look, you identified this as an issue. I feel better about it now. You never want to see Messidor get hurt. Hopefully he's healthy tomorrow, because you got to win this game. You got to win every game, but this is a game that, is going to be one of the more challenging ones left on the schedule. You would love to see
if he's not 100%, I don't play him. Quite frankly, I really don't. But
yeah, he's a guy's had lingering injuries too, right, in his career. Right, you've seen him rush back and not be 100%. It's not the same. You really want him full go. It's a big game for Marquise Lightfoot, man. This is a game to me when they're not a physical offensive line. It's going to just dominate, Lightfoot, just pushing him back. He's got to dominate this game. He's got to get to Jennings. He's got to get to he's got to go sideline to sideline and eliminate some of that horizontal movement that you see from Jennings.